sometimes these boxes of nails end up opening at the on the bottom, and you know, they don't make they make these as spill nails. It's a way I think it's a way that they sell lots more nails because they spill out of the bottom. But anyway, top sealed up and the bottom's open. Just go with it. So this is a finish nail. I didn't bring out any. We usually use just finish nails for this kind of stuff, but what was I gonna say? A common nail has a wider head to it, where the head's on the surface. A finish nail is meant to have the little tiny head sink below the surface, so that you can kind of putty over it. And just the way that you would do that, and you can use clamps to hold things in place. Also, you would use some glue. Apply some glue, spread it out evenly. Put that there like that. I may split the wood. This would be a good demo for splitting the wood. I'm just going to hold it here. You could clamp it in place. And I'm going to start out by just kind of tapping it. So now the nail is kind of set in there. And I tend to want to slow down a little bit towards the end. I mean, I'm even leaving that nail sticking up a little bit. And then I'll take a nail set, take that and put that on the nail head, and inset it a little bit. If you can see how it's working there. So that's indented. And then I can putty over that later on. Nails aren't terribly strong by themselves. That's why you would want, I can pull this apart. Something that usually happens though. That went well. I don't usually have things go that way. So usually what happens is I start nailing. And actually not bad to nail at an angle, because if you nail two of them at an angle, it'll lock it together better. But anyway, so I start nailing, and I'm holding the hammer back here so I get more force, but then I do like that. Whoops. So then I kind of, don't use your hand. Kind of bend this back, try again, bend it back. So if you end up in this situation, sometimes you can save it. And sometimes you get to that point, you just get mad and you flatten it out and you get this weird bent over nail thing looking there. But if it's too messed up, you can take the claw. This is called the claw hammer. Hit the nails with this side, pull the nails out with this side. Has a V kind of there. I slide it so it's tight against that. And then I can pull that. Now if you're stingy on nails, you can take this nail and straighten it back out. Seen like grandfather kind of thing where you pull apart something and save the nails, straighten them all out and use them again, I think. All right, so the thing you can do is go back to the drill, and I can drill a pilot hole. And I could find a drill bit, twist bit that's the size or a little bit smaller than this nail, but the problem is we've broken all of them, or we lose them. There might be a few. We'll get some more, but so it's pretty small. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut the head off of this nail. This only works because this wood is really soft pine. So I'm gonna use this pair of pliers, and it has a cutter right here. I will put the head in there like that, and then cut it off. Of course, you're wearing your safety glasses. I'm gonna put that into the drill. And you don't necessarily have to have pilot holes like this for the finish nails, but if you're having trouble, especially with little pieces of wood that might split on you, and you're having trouble, a pilot hole can help. And essentially, I almost don't think I'm really drilling as much as boring. It's not cutting into it, but I can take this and I can, and now the next nail I put in, and again I've got glue on this, or I don't, but I would. It's easier to drive in. Oh, also if I don't stop and kind of go back, a lot of times what I'll do is dent the piece of wood with the hammer. You guys are working on kind of small projects, so you shouldn't be swinging that hard, but you'll notice that happens if you're working on larger things, and you get these dents in there, half moons kind of thing. You could put them over in this case, but just kind of take it easy. The other thing you can do with that, say I wanted this piece of wood to be here. First off, I might sand I'll talk about sandpaper. A little flat, not a big one, because I wanted to have sort of that appearance of, you know, just hanging there. And then I can take the drill. I want to be careful not to drill into my hand, but I can bore that little nail hole into there, a little tiny hole. I can take another nail. I can affix that in there, and I can even tap it a little bit. Not too hard, because this little piece of wood you probably would split. Then I can take my pliers again with the cutter, lineman's pliers, and I can snip that. Now I could kind of line it up and set it to where I wanted. Make a little mark. Drill a little hole. Slide it, kind of pin. I'm using the nail as kind of a pin. That's now in there. So now, you know, I could get it positioned the way I want to, but that little nail is holding them together. Sit it flat. And the nail's a little bendable too, so sometimes those work better than wooden dowels. And once you got it to where you wanted, you could take it apart and glue it and get it exactly where you needed it. Another way, other than nails, to fasten wood together is a screw, and these are Phillips-headed screws, which means they go with a Phillips-headed screwdriver. So that works with that. Turns it. Does not work with a flat-headed screwdriver. Then you need a flat-headed, that would be a slotted screw. Anyway, not that there's anything wrong with these. These are coming very handy. Now you can use a hand screwdriver. You could pilot drill a hole. You would make it about the size of the shank, that inner thing, not the threads. You want to leave it small enough so the threads have stuff to cut into. And then you could even hand use the Phillips to turn it in, going clockwise to screw it down in. Now we could also use the power drill, not just to drill a pilot hole, but we can use it with a driver bit. It's like a little cut-off Phillips head. And we can even use it with this magnetic one that has a nice option. It's magnetic, so it kind of holds it there, but also has this little slide on it. This is helpful if you're like working at something that's above your head, like putting sheetrock above your head, because that'll hold it and you can kind of, it'll drive this, instead of trying to hold the whole thing together over your head. But it can come in handy. Anyway, so we put this end into the drill. We're gonna use this keyless chuck. Tighten it down, plug it in. And I can kind of drive the screw in. So making sure that it's in there. You don't want it to, here's what you don't want to do. Slip like that, which is really easy to do if you don't put pressure right in there, or you're pulling the trigger too hard. Also, if you're trying to hold a camera, phone at the same time, it's a little tricky. So I'm trying to hold my hand straight down in so that pushes it down in. And then I want to try to submerge that head a little bit. The other thing it can happen, what happens sometimes with that screw head is that it tends to split the wood. So one thing you can do is use this countersink, or sometimes they have a pilot bit and countersink all hooked together. But this will cut a little divot for the head to sit into, so you're not splitting the wood apart because it acts like a wedge. I can kind of go. Divot. And again, as I do this, I'm kind of keeping pressure straight down in. I'm pulling the trigger. I'm not pulling it really hard. Notice how slowly, even doing like little bits of turns. Now it's below the surface, and I didn't cause it to split the wood, and I can putty over that if I want to hide it. The nice thing about screws is I can use that reverse switch on here. Say I don't like, or if I want to take something apart, I can just back the screw back out and take it apart. So if you don't use glues with screws, you can disassemble things, which can come in handy.